Education to discuss these questions. This past year, having specifically focused on researching the transportation point of the resolution, I will bring up some of our questions and ideas regarding transportation. Firstly, we would like clarification regarding the role of the new transportation director that Mr. Lam mentioned being hired. We would also like to talk to the board about the possibility of free bus passes for NHPS students, as we feel that this is a step which could greatly help address the transportation point of the resolution, as well as be very beneficial to students, and especially students from lower income families. At the beginning of this month, I reached out to several members of the Board of Education in the hope of us finding a time to meet to discuss the action being taken on the resolution. However, this communication went unanswered, so I'm requesting that the Board of Education will respond after this testimony tonight. Meeting to discuss the climate emergency resolution is very important to us to understand the actions being taken and to contribute ideas from the research we've done on these points. Therefore, we ask that the Board of Education will be responsive to our request to find a time to meet with us in the near future, and we look forward to meeting with you. Thank you and have a good night.
Thank you. Next, I have Maxi Han.
You should begin.
Okay, they just logged off. We have John Carlos Musser.
Hello.
Oh, there we go.
Wait.
My apologies. Go right ahead.
Sorry. Wait, am I supposed to be on the panel? Oh, okay. Okay, sorry. Good evening. My name is Nancy Han, and I'm a rising sophomore at Wilbercross High School. I'm also a member of New Haven Climate Movement. I would like to talk about the Board of Education's updates about their progress on Action Point 2 of the Climate Emergency Resolution, which is transportation, and bring up concerns about the distribution of free bus passes to New Haven Public School students. The Board of Education reported to us that they have hired a new transportation coordinator. However, they did not specify whether this coordinator is filling an already existing position or a new role that puts great emphasis on the implementation of our proposals in order to fill Action Point 2 of the resolution. We would like to meet with the Board of Education so that they can clarify this for us. We would also like to establish a line of communication with this new transportation coordinator and work with them to make progress on this action point. I would also like to bring attention to the distribution of free bus passes for New Haven Public School students. We have been told that the Board of Ed has allocated funds to schools for providing students with bus passes ever since CT Transit began to charge $1.40 per ride. However, when we reached out to our school, we were told that free bus passes were not available to students unless they participated in ECA or an after-school program. With buses no longer free and an apparent breakdown in communication between the Board of Ed and individual schools on the matter of distributing free bus passes to students, there has been a visible drop in students taking the city bus, considering that many students cannot afford bus passes on a daily basis. This results not only in serious inconveniences for the students and their families, but also forces students previously using city buses to switch back to environmentally unsustainable alternatives, which backtracks previous progress. We would like to meet with the Finance and Operations Committee to establish exactly what the current system of distributing free bus passes is and work towards a more efficient way of getting these bus passes to students in need next school year. We trust that the Board of Ed understands our sense of urgency in these matters and finds time to meet with us. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. There are no hands raised at this point.
I'd like to invite Kristen McDowell for public comment.
Evening. I'm here to talk with the board about communication. There seems to be none at all. I am a concerned parent of a special needs child. Even Dr. Eileen Tracy has been involved in certain emails to no response, calls for meetings, no response. When it comes to transportation, let's look at some of these schools that have multiple buses, but maybe only 15 kids on each bus. You want to talk about transportation? Why do certain schools have over 15 to 20 buses, but do not have that many kids to get on each bus? The buses hold up to about 55 students. This doesn't make sense. I can drive down Edgewood and see buses lined up. 15 kids get on each bus. That's misuse of buses. You wonder why these kids from Cross can't get to school? The magnet schools get majority of the buses. Even you, the mayor, your office called me. One of your representatives and a state representative called me in regards to an issue where first student lost my child, special needs child, door-to-door service. They didn't put him off at his school. He rode around. I still haven't seen the footage. I am a pissed off parent that I have to come to a board meeting because I guarantee you, none of you guys know anything. I talk to Daniel Diaz more than I talk to anybody else because if I don't add him on an email or call him and notify him, nothing gets done. I have sent email after email. I've come to the board many times. Otherwise, transportation, I give Teddy all her credit because Teddy understands my frustration. There have been multiple bus issues, multiple communication issues throughout this school district. I'm tired. I'm tired of having to fight for my child the way I do in a district that lost me on the bus as a kid. So I know how my special needs autistic child felt, but y'all wouldn't even let me see the footage. But first student be posting any other accident and everything else on the news, and that's not a HIPAA violation, but y'all want to tell me it is. Let's make it make sense. I can't see the footage of my child. Y'all want to tell me y'all know my child better than I do? My child was mute. The trauma that y'all caused my child made him not want to get on the bus, made my child speak. I get to the school, his teacher's crying. She's the one that communicates with me the most. My child cried to the point I get into school, all he says is, no bus, home. Y'all made my child talk in the worst way. I had him traumatized on Christmas break, calling the board, trying to get answers. Y'all threatened me with a lawyer because I wanted to see footage. And it's a Department of Education document that if transportation is in his IOP, I can see the footage. Y'all still to this day, since 2021 of December 23rd, have not let me see this footage. Y'all want to tell me y'all know my child better than I do? I guarantee you don't. You don't. Communicate with these parents. Stop sending things by mail. Call us. Stop sending things by email. Call us. Y'all don't know half the stuff is going. I don't care about a time. That's the problem that y'all forget. The board runs by us. The parents. No, you're gonna hear me because y'all don't answer these emails. I don't.
Madam Chair, time.
You can say whatever you want, but y'all do need to hear this because Dr. Eileen Tracy, I can pull up the emails right now. Many of them you are CC'd on, and I asked for meetings and left you messages. No return. So I feel this district does not care about these kids when y'all can't even communicate the right way with their parents. Let alone when I report it to the school, y'all still don't know. When I speak to special student services, they don't know. Y'all had my son set up for 2 different summer schools and no bus. How did I know? By mail. Y'all know New Haven has snail mail, so I don't even know why we tried this. Give a parent a phone call. Answer us back. I've left multiple voicemails, emails. Y'all don't answer us back. So I'm here for communication. You can hold the timer up all you want. I'm like a lot of these parents out here that want to speak up, and I'm going to come and speak because it's not right that you do the special needs community like this. You traumatized my child.
Thank you for your testimony. We, as the board, at least for me, I can say that I did know about this issue.
And that's my problem.
But
That's why I said communication is the problem. I've communicated.
I
with
will
many people.
have-
The only person that gets the job done is Daniel Diaz. Why do I have to go through him? Calling him and
Again,
say, hey, the person you said was going to call me still hasn't called me. But yet when he calls them on their cell phone, they answer. But if I call them,
I understand.
they don't answer.
I
Y'all need to
understand your
communicate.
frustration.
Sure can, 'cause y'all need to communicate. I am tired. I will be a pain in y'all behind for my child.
Yeah, I never.
I've had meetings with a couple people. Just the fact that the ones that I asked to speak to don't get back to me.
Mr. Lamb, is there anyone else who is going to testify? Thank you. No one else online? That's okay. Thank you. So we'll move on to the approval of the board meeting minutes. June 6th and June 12th.
Could you speak a little louder, Madam President?
We're moving on to the approval of the board. Of the
Okay.
meeting minutes for June 6th and June 12th. Mr. Wilcox?
Madam Chair, I move to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Dr. Joyner. Mr. Wilcox?
I was going to move to approve the minutes
Thank you.
for June 6th.
Second.
Your motion is to approve the June.
June
6th.
6th, so that we can see if there's any corrections to those minutes, because I have corrections for both sets of minutes, so however you wish to.
Okay,
proceed.
so Dr. Joyner would have to withdraw his.
I'll withdraw my motion.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Joyner. Is there a second? Thank you, Mr. Golton. Any discussion? Mr. Wilcox?
Just, yeah, real quickly on the June 6th minutes, in the section where it's talking about the transportation contract extension. One correction is it's where the sentences, the initial contract was based on 240 routes. I talked to Mr. Lamb this evening and it was 340 routes was the original one. And then it does correctly state that the contract, the new contract, the extension is less routes than that, but it's listed here as 240. It should be 340.
Okay, so the correction is that it should be 340 routes versus 240. Thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, we'll vote to approve the meeting minutes of June 6th with corrections. Mr. Wilcox,
Yes.
Dr. Joyner,
Yes.
Mr. Golton,
Yes.
Dr. Benitez,
Yes.
Dr. Yarborough.
Yes.
Students are not on. Mayor Eliger,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. Oh, hey, Dave, how are you? Mr. Cruz Bustamante? Yes. Yes. Thank you. Sorry, I missed you. Mr. Wilcox?
Yeah, I move we approve the board minutes of June 12th.
Second.
Any discussion? Mr. Wilcox?
Yes, just a couple corrections on this, on item. It's listed here as item 11, where it says it's the citywide school building committee. That's actually Head Start. In item 12, where it's listed as finance and operations, that's actually the citywide school building committee report. And then in number 12 is repeated, and that's the finance and operations. So there's just a couple of categories where some are repeated and some are connected to the wrong things.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Wilcox. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote on June 12th meeting minutes with corrections. Mr. Wilcox,
Yes.
Mr. Golton,
Yes.
Dr. Joyner,
Yes.
Dr. Yarborough,
Yes.
Dr. Benitez,
Yes.
Mr. Cruz Bustamante. Mayor Eliger,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well, and those minutes pass with corrections. And we'll move on to the personnel report. Dr. Tracy?
Well, good evening, board members and members of the audience who may be there and those in community who may be watching on YouTube. I am happy and proud to say that I'm giving my last report to this board. So I have a couple of action items, but before I do so, Madam President, will someone make a motion to add as an action item the budget proposal for 2023, 2024?
Can we do that after we do the personnel?
You'll do
report?
that afterwards?
Yes. Thank you,
Okay,
Dr. Tracy.
all right, okay.
But
So
I will
I
move the
asked
personnel
that-
report so you could discuss it.
Okay, so I ask that you accept the personnel report. We have one executive management. Of course, this had gone through, but by protocol, we have to put it on the board for it to go through the board. Dr. Madeline Negron, that's protocol. She's already gone through. We have some administrative appointment. Ms. Vanessa Diaz Valencia as the Director of Early Learning Programs to replace Ms. Pamela Agustin Jefferson. And then we have a couple of assistant principal, Caroline Abkar, Talima Andrews Harris, and Dr. Jonathan Berman. I ask that the board, and Emma Pompandria, I ask that the board accept the, I don't know how to speak now. I ask that the board approve the personnel report.
Madam President, I'll move the report, discussion purposes.
Thank you, Mr. Golton. Is there a second? Mr. Wilcox?
Second.
Madam President,
Yes, Mr. Golton?
I am, I'm not quite. I don't
Could you
understand
speak
why-
clear, speak up, Darnell, or get the mic closer to you? Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. I'm not quite sure why Dr. Negron is on the report. We've approved her hire. We approved her contract, which included her salary. So for us to approve it again today seems a little overkill. I would suggest, I would amend my motion to move the Negron item over to the information only document.
This was a suggestion by our HR director, Miss Lisa Mack, that seemed to be protocol. They did that for me too.
Well, there's
I
one
was
other
put
thing
on.
also.
It's protocol.
There's one other thing, Dr. Tracy. This is called the personnel report of the superintendent. You didn't hire the superintendent, this board did. We've already done that process through several meetings. And I understand the idea of protocol, which is why I'm suggesting that you put it on the information only item, but I don't see a reason for us to approve it yet again a third or fourth time, Madam President.
And that's correct. I spoke with Attorney Alexiadis before the meeting just to make sure, because I thought the same thing. It would be appropriate for it to be on the information only items of the personnel report, but not for us to have to vote on it since we did the voting already and actually we've already signed the contract and she's ready to start on the first, so.
And quite honestly, Madam President, putting this on the blue sheet just gives people like me an opportunity to kind of mess with it a little, if I was in that mode. So I would suggest we just kind of, I have an amendment to my motion on the floor.
Is there a second to the amendment?
Second.
Any discussion on the amendment?
That's, for me, that's perfectly fine. I have no
So,
problem with that.
Amending. Okay, thank you, Dr. Tracy. Mr. Golson?
Yes.
Mr. Wilcox?
Yes.
Dr. Joyner?
Yes.
Dr. Benitez?
Yes.
Dr. Yarborough?
Yes.
Mr. Cruz Bustamante? Mayor Elicker?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. And so that item carries. Mr. Golson?
Madam President, thank you. I first want to congratulate the superintendent on her well-deserved and earned retirement. I hope she enjoys it and actually does get a little bit of free time and me time in. These recommendations for promotional appointment are, and for the administrator are great appointments. I was wondering when it was going to happen for some of them, and particularly Mr. Berryman, Dr. Berryman, who I've been watching for many years since I've been on this board. I think it's well-deserved, these appointments, and I'm wholeheartedly support them, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Golson. Dr. Tracy?
Okay, yeah, that's, you have to vote on this and then I call in the individuals, please. Thanks.
Sure. We did vote.
No, we voted on.
Will there be a vote for approval, Madam President?
All right, so we'll vote on the actual personnel report. We voted on the amendment. Mr. Wilcox,
Yes.
Dr. Joyner,
Yes.
Dr. Benitez,
Yes.
Dr. Yarborough,
Yes.
Mr. Cruz Bustamante, Mr. Golson.
Yes.
Mayor Elicker,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. And so that item passes. Go ahead.
Thank
Dr.
you
Lucy.
so much. So let me first present, and I may say this was in collaboration with Dr. Negron. We involved her in the process. Vanessa Diaz Valencia. I don't know if she's there in person in the building right now with you, but
She
if
is,
Valencia
Dr.
is there, please come to
She's
the
here.
podium. Valencia. So I just want to present her as the choice for being the next early childhood director. She has had a wealth of experience in working in this position. She served as Assistant Director of Curriculum Instruction and Programs for Hartford Public Schools, and she oversaw the Early Childhood Program K-5 Literacy Department. And she has a lot of experience in handling different projects and played an active role in the center's mission to ensure that individuals with developmental disabilities and their families participate in the design and have access to needed community services, individualized supports, and other forms of assistance that promote self-determination, independence, productivity, integration, and inclusion in all facets of community life through culturally competent programs. She holds a 6-year degree in educational leadership, an MED in curriculum and instruction, and a BA in elementary education. She will be very helpful with us in this letters training that's now going on in New Haven. She was trained in this letters training and as part of the science of reading, and will be helpful, very helpful in New Haven landscape. Her investment in education transcends the office of her 3 sons, Cristiano, 10, Luciano, 8, and Emiliano, 6, who also they attend Hartford Public Schools. We're glad that she's able to join New Haven Public Schools. Welcome aboard, Miss Vanessa Diaz Valencia.
Good evening, everyone. Yes, Vanessa Diaz Valencia. I am super grateful to be here. Thank you, Board of Education, and everyone that was on the interview panel. Just so thrilled for this opportunity, spending 8 years in Hartford Public Schools. I'm really excited to be part of the New Haven Public Schools family. And 2 families, I mean, yes, 3 sons, and one of whom, our youngest, that is a child of special needs services. He's on the autism spectrum. So the parent comment tonight rung true to my heart. So hopeful to bring some of my professional and personal experience to the work. Thank you again.
Thank you. The next person is Miss Caroline Apgar. If Caroline is in your presence, Caroline, will you come to the podium if you're there? So while Caroline is coming, Caroline joined New Haven Public Schools in 2007 as a middle school English language arts teacher. She spent 8 years as a Read 180 and ELA teacher before becoming a literacy coach, and most recently served as a 712 district ELA lead teacher. Ms. Abkar supports district-wide initiatives by providing professional development for teachers and progress monitoring of students. Ms. Abkar graduated from Quinnipiac University with a BA in English and Sociology, and from SCSU with an MS in Reading Instruction. She also earned her 6th year in school administration and supervision from the University of Connecticut. She resides in New Haven, and we welcome Ms. Abkar to continue working with us. Congratulations, Caroline.
I'd like to thank Dr. Tracy and the Board of Education, Assistant Superintendent Hannons. I've spent my entire career in New Haven, and I'm incredibly blessed to continue to develop in New Haven.
I'm not hearing her.
Under the tutelage of Miss Lynn Brantley, who has been along the way with me since my early Read 180 days. I'm incredibly grateful for this opportunity. I'd like to thank my fiance, Walter Gibbs, for being with me every step of the way. And I truly look forward to joining Mr. Foreman's amazing Troop family and continuing to work on behalf of New Haven schools at Troop. So thank you again for this opportunity.
Thank you, Carolyn. Thank you. The next person is Mr. Lima Andrews Harris. Mr. Lima Andrews Harris. She has led an impressive career as a teacher and leader nationally and globally. She's a seasoned teacher with over 20 years of experience and is passionate about advancing education. Her experience as public school teacher and leader in Atlanta, Georgia, New York City, and the United Arab Emirates and Connecticut has assisted her with gaining knowledge in designing and implementing curriculum and behavior management systems, analyzing data to support instruction and training in restorative practice. Ms. Andrews taught the Global Cities curriculum at the Engineering and Science University, which we call ESUMS, before moving into the position of Magnet Resource Teacher. She graduated from Spelman College and holds advanced degrees from Teachers College, Columbia University, and New York University. She's an active member of various educational organizations, including Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority and Jack and Jill of America Incorporated. Currently, she is the president of the HBCU, Connecticut HBCU Alumni Network. We welcome Miss Talima Andrews. Hi, Talima.
Good evening. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Well, good evening, everyone. I want to thank Dr. Tracy, the board, and the members of New Haven Public Schools for this appointment. I am very honored to be able to serve in this capacity with New Haven Public Schools. And I look forward to my new team at Co-op. And I look forward to a phenomenal, successful year. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Talima. Next up is Emma Papandrea. Emma Papandrea. I always call Emma's name wrong. She knows that. I've known Emma for quite some while. I've seen her in action at Ross Woodward School. She's a teacher who is one of those who is considered exemplary teacher while she worked under the direction of Cheryl Brown and Robert Davis, and more recently had become one of our math coaches. Emma takes on leadership position without anyone having to ask her. She goes above and beyond her duties and do what is best for students. She has a solid educational foundation and a passion for education and leadership, and she is enthused to continue her work in this field in New Haven Public Schools. Thank you, Emma, for being part of our school system.
And thank you, Dr. Tracy and the board. I appreciate this opportunity. I am so excited to join the King Robinson family and excited for a new school year. And again, just so grateful for this opportunity. So thank you all so much.
Thank you. The next person up is Dr. Jonathan Q. Barriman. Dr. Jonathan Q. Barriman. I've known Dr. Barriman for quite some while. I moved him a couple of years ago out of the classroom into being someone in charge of climate at, I think it was Barnard School. And then things happened and he went back into the classroom, but he went back with a lot of, I would say, excitement because he loves being with his students. He's a musician at heart and a master musician at heart. So when I called Jonathan, I said, Jonathan, you're in. He was like, really? You know, so I am happy. Dr. Berman in his teaching has started his teaching career in 1985 as a part-time music teacher at Co-op High School, where he was inspired to earn his teaching credentials and to become a full-time educator. After a year and a half of full-time teaching in Longfellow Elementary in Bridgeport, Dr. Berman made one of the best decisions of his life by joining NHBS. During his 25-year tenure in NHBS, Dr. Berman had the privilege of teaching at Fairhaven Middle School, Betsy Ross Arts Magnet School, Barnard Environmental Studies Magnet School, where he served as a climate leader for 4 years. In 2021, 22-23, Dr. Berman served as administrative intern at Hill Regional Career Magnet School. So I made him intern because I wanted to see what else do you have, Jonathan? What else are you going to show us? And so in talking to the principal, he said, oh, he did very well. He was in charge of the entire 11th grade. And that pushed me to make my decision of making Dr. Berman an administrator in New Haven Public School. Welcome, Dr. Berman.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Tracy, and thank you to this board
for this honor, this promotion, where I look forward to serving at a higher level, making sure that our students receive a free and appropriate public education to the best of our ability. I stand here on the shoulders of giants. I've had some wonderful mentors in the administrators that I've had over the years. Certainly, Mr. Sean True, Mr. Steven Ciarcia, Miss Alice Coleman, and my colleague, Miss Dr. Haifa Abdel Jalil were very instrumental this year at Career High School. We were a dynamic team, and it was a great experience to be an intern at Career. So I thank you, Dr. Tracy, also for that opportunity. I am looking forward to serving more deeply, more widely, to include all stakeholders in this wonderful process of self-discovery that produces the great people that Hill House has done for many, many years. It is our oldest high school. It is certainly one of our more revered high schools because of its longevity. I know there's a great rivalry between Hill House and Cross. I know that very well. However, we are all part of the same family. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. Board, that is my report. Thank you so much.
That concludes your personnel report, Dr. Tracy.
Yeah, that completes my personal report. Thank you.
You, finance and operations, Mr. Wilcox.
Thank you very much. Before I do that, would you like me to make a motion to amend the agenda
Yes, please.
for the adjusted budget? All right. So I move that we add to the agenda a voting item for the 2023-24 adjusted general budget.
Second.
Oh, sorry.
Dr. Yarbrough, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, see none, we'll vote to amend the agenda to include the adjusted budget. Mr. Wilcox,
Yes.
Dr. Yarbrough,
Yes.
Mr. Goldson.
Yes.
Dr. Joyner,
Yes.
Dr. Benitez,
Yes.
Mr. Cruz Bustamante. Mayor Elicker,
Yes.
and I am a yes as well. So we've added that item.
All right, thank you. Now move on to the finance and operations action items. Just checking in to see if anybody needs anything moved separately this evening. Hearing and seeing nobody needing that, I'm going to go ahead and make the motion, and that is I move that we approve the 7 abstracts, the 27 agreements, the 20 contracts, the 2 change orders, and the 2 purchase orders as recommended by the Finance and Operations Committee.
There a
Second.
second? Dr. Yarbrough, thank you. Mr. Wilcox. Any discussion?
Just
Mr. Wilcox?
if I may, I'll just say, as you can tell, there was an awful lot of things on this agenda, as is typical in the May and June agendas. Just special thanks not only to the committee members who have to go through and read all this, but also the staff that pulls it together. In particular, thinking about Ms. DeMeo as she shepherds all these things to get in all the paperwork in the right place. But just wanted to say thanks to everybody for that.
Thank you, Mr. Wilcox. Okay, seeing no further discussion, we'll vote on the F&O items. Mr. Wilcox,
Yes.
Dr. Yarbrough,
Yes.
Dr. Joyner,
Yes.
Dr. Benitez,
Yes.
Mr. Golton,
Yes.
Mr. Cruz Bustamante, Mayor Elicker,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. So those items pass. I guess we'll go to the adjusted budget.
Miss
Is there a motion to
Annans?
approve- Is there a motion to approve the adjusted budget? And then we can go, I guess, into the presentation. Mr. Wilcox?
I move that we approve the 2023-2024 adjusted general budget.
Is there a
I
second?
second.
Thank you, Dr. Yarborough. Mr. Wilcox? Any discussion? Mr. Golson?
Thank you, Madam President. I argued against these items when they first came before us. I haven't changed my opinion on them. We have a labor secretary, a labor attorney, in this budget. I'm assuming that person is gonna be somewhere in the HR department, but I'm not quite sure from the documentation I saw who will actually be supervising that position. I'd like to know more about that. Same thing with the deputy purchasing agent. We don't have a purchasing department, so for us to have a deputy purchasing agent confuses me, so I'd like to know how that position is going to be managed. And that's actually it. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Golton. Ms. Hannons, are those questions you're able to answer with your?
Yes, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear, but I think I got the, I heard a little bit of it. Yes, Mr. Goldson, what we're doing is the labor attorney will be housed at HR. The deputy purchasing agent, I read the job description and it's a different title, but it will be under my supervision and will be housed here at 54 Meadow Street.
I want to make sure I understand that you're saying that the position actually is not going to be a deputy purchasing agent. There's a new title for that position?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Okay, I'm sorry about that.
No, it's not your fault.
I think I heard you say that the deputy purchasing agent will no longer be called a deputy purchasing agent, but has a different title.
Yeah, yeah, I have the job description across the desk from me. The title is going to be Education Procurement Coordinator, and it will be the direct supervision would be from the New Haven Public Schools Chief Financial Officer.
Thank you very much for clearing that up. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Just a question then is, because we also looked at a draft memorandum of understanding with the city for, I believe, these positions, as well as a renewal of the current attorney position that we have. So how does that relate to, how do these positions relate to that MOU, please?
But the MOU is because they're going to be on the, I guess it would be under the city's financial report. So the amounts that are on the new items agenda, you notice that the numbers are changed a little. Or they'll stay on the city payroll, and then we would just reimburse. That's the only thing.
So my understanding is, and it was part of the testimony in the Finance and Operations Committee, is that they will be working closely with the school district. There will
Yes.
be administrative people responsible in helping set that work. But for instance, the attorneys would actually be part of the city's corp counsel office, and the purchasing agent would also be part of the purchasing department. And if I'm incorrect on that, please somebody correct me.
The job description that I have in front of me says works under the direction of the purchasing agent with direct supervision from the Board of Education Chief Financial Officer and designee. So the person would be here.
Right. So my understanding is that they would have like a foot in both worlds, because that's what's needed for various reasons, as was talked about in the committee meeting, was some charter reasons, as well as also just the
Yes.
practical reasons of like purchasing has to work very closely with purchasing, because our stuff goes through city purchasing. So I think it's a reporting to the schools, but also into those other offices is my understanding.
Yeah.
Madam President.
Yes, for a smoother operation. So they will be the connection with the city department and with us, so things can be moved more efficiently on for our side.
Thank you, Mr. Wilcox. Mr. Golton?
Madam President, I'm back to confused again. These positions are paid for through our budget. Is that correct?
Yes.
So we are paying for these positions, yet they are being supervised by a different department. Actually, by a department in the city, not even the Board of Education. Is that correct? So for instance, the labor attorney is going to be hired by Corp Counsel at the city, supervised by Corp Counsel. Salary will be managed by the Corp Counsel. And when it comes times for raises and so on, I assume the Corp Counsel is going to make those decisions as opposed to our administration. Is that correct?
That part I can't explain, Mr. Golson, but what, from my understanding and probing into it, is because of certain charter, they have to be under Corp Counsel.
Then why don't they pay for it then? Why doesn't the city pay
No,
for it?
because
instead?
they're working for us, not for Corp Counsel. It's just a matter of semantics there. They're working for New Haven Public Schools, not for Corp Counsel.
Everybody at the public school system works for the city of New Haven at one way,
No, you know what
one
I
way or
mean.
another, because we all represent the citizens of the city of New Haven. I just don't understand why it's set up like this. I mean, we have this set up for these two positions, and we have a totally different setup for our board attorney, who is contractually working for us, but we're paying for, and he's being supervised by the court. He was hired by and being supervised by the Corp Counsel. And I'm just wondering, where is the line drawn? When do we stop doing this kind of stuff where we say these people work for us? This is going to make it crazy for the HR director to have a person who works for her but is not actually supervised by her. It's being supervised by somebody at the city of New Haven. You can't have two bosses. And we are setting up two processes here for these employees to have two bosses. And it's just going to get messier and messier as time goes on. And we're expanding this. First, we did this labor attorney that works for us, was paid for and hired by and supervised by the city. And now we have two other positions that we're not even supervising anymore. Because let's be honest, if you pay my bill, if you pay my check, and you do my evaluation, then I work for you. I don't work for those people whose office you sent me over to. So I'm just trying to figure out why we're doing this and how long and how far we're going to carry this. Because the fact that you answered, you don't quite understand how it's going to work concerns me.
So it would be similar to how Ilya works right now. Ilya still reports to Corp Counsel, but does work for New Haven Public Schools, so I don't see it as different. The only way we could avoid something like that is if we had special funds and pay them through special funds, and we would bypass a lot of that.
Or we could have avoided
but
it by
they're
having
being
the city
paid.
hire these people, pay for these people, and maybe they reduce our budget by $200,000 as opposed to adding it to our budget that we have to go and beg for every year to the Board of Aldermen. I'm just uncomfortable with this whole position. It really doesn't make a difference. I'm going to vote for this budget, but I'm just uncomfortable with it. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Goldson. Mr. Lamb, you had your hand up earlier. I'm guessing you're
sorry.
gonna clarify
Foil.
something.
This is a foil. Do you want to give me the end piece?
No, they both have foil.
Perhaps I can provide some clarification.
Piece of foil on the top.
Okay.
I
Just
had
the idea.
several
I'm not worried about that.
conversations with
Bless us, O Lord, and be thy gift.
You're on mute.
There's some interference.
Harmon, please.
Mr. Harmon, can you mute yourself?
Or thank you.
I had several conversations with Corporation Counsel around the city charter in this area. Part of the issue lies that positions of attorneys by their professional standards of conduct can only be supervised by another attorney. So in order for an attorney to work for the district, it's an attorney-client relationship. We provide them with the work. They give us the advice just as they would as if we were any other client. With the purchasing agent by city charter, there can only be one purchasing agent for the city, for all departments. Any purchasing agent that works within the city has to report to that purchasing agent by city charter. There cannot be a purchasing agent acting under the auspices of the purchasing department in any other department of the city.
Go ahead, Mr. Goldson.
Thank you, Madam President. That all makes sense. But then it comes back to the question, then why are they in our budget? Why aren't they in the city's budget? Because quite frankly, we have to keep going back to the Board of Aldermen and asking for more money for the Board of Ed. And if we keep expanding this, I mean, we have a lot of people at the city government who do a lot of things for the Board of Ed. It's not just in purchasing, it's not just in legal. HR does a lot of things for us because some unions are city, some unions are Board of Ed. So there are a lot of different ways that the city helps out with the Board of Ed. Are we going to continue to have those costs moved over to the Board of Ed? I just want to know, is that the plan? I mean, because there's probably at least $500,000 to $1 million worth of work, employees that work at the city that do Board of Ed work. So we need to know, because every time we go to the Board of Ed Alders to ask for more money, you know, that 200,000 may not sound like much, but it is. And we have to, and they didn't increase our budget by $200,000 because we're paying city employees to do our work. This is not for you. This is for my fellow board members. So with all due respect, I think that we as a board keep an eye on this and maybe eventually talk more about this and draw up some kind of policies about how we do these kind of partnerships. Because I'm not opposed to the partnership, but folks need to know, you know, when our budget goes up to $200,000, the Board of Alders needs to know when we come to them, that increase we're asking for includes city costs. Thank you, Madam President.
I'm smiling, Mr. Golson.
Hold on.
And the
Dr.
reason why
Tracy.
I'm smiling is that when the Board of Education cannot meet its requirement in terms of closing the budget, where does it go? Back to the city.
Yeah.
And the city has to close it. I just wanted to say that.
And I agree with you, Dr. Tracy. And I say it every time we do the budget. I say we shouldn't worry about deficits because the city's going to eventually pay it anyhow. But they ought to know that part of that deficit is costs that we incur with their employees. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Golson. Mr. Wilcox?
All right, thank you. Just a couple things here on this. I'm in support of this budget. I'm in support of adding these positions because we've heard about in various meetings here and also in Finance and Operations Committee meetings, some of the challenges around purchasing. This allows us to expand the purchasing department in a way that'll meet our needs. As I mentioned previously, we have a draft memorandum of understanding for these three positions between the board and the city that outlines responsibilities, costs, and also includes, as has been previous, termination clause that both sides can terminate this agreement if it doesn't work. So one of the reasons why I'm in support of this is because through the MOU, the board and the city work out this arrangement in a way that we have a say where we wouldn't if these were just simply assigned to us, where and now we have things that both sides are agreeing on up front. It's a draft MOU because this is important to get right. And so we're going to be looking at again on the July 5th Finance and Operations Committee meeting. And I believe that MOU will probably come here on July 10th meeting is the plan. So I invite everybody to take a look at that. The draft of the MOU is there on the F&O website. I'm also in support of this, even though this is a deficit budget, and by Connecticut law, boards of education have to have balanced budgets. We have to, if we're not going to have enough money, we have to go ask the city, not just shove it at them and say, sorry. But there's a mitigation plan attached to this, and the district has over the last several years shown that they can close these budget gaps. So instead of having multi-million-dollar budget gaps that the city has to deal with last minute at the end of the year, the administration and the board has been working to mitigate that along the way. That said, this mitigation plan, what I don't like about it is includes excess transportation costs because what the board decided to do, spend more money for transportation next year and get less services. But that's the situation we're dealing with. And so I just will note, the difference between this budget and the budget that we approved to go before the alders in March, this has less money for teachers and other positions, less money for paras, because we're going to have to mitigate that extra transportation costs away. So in spite of that, because there's a mitigation plan and because I've observed and seen this administration, and I have faith in the next administration to mitigate that, I'm in support of this and we'll be voting yes tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilcox. Dr. Yarborough?
Yes, thank you. I certainly do wish we didn't need a mitigation plan and that we were fully funded from the state side. Yet I do appreciate the board and our administrators and the rest of the NHPS community that works to mitigate the budget. I wanted to just highlight, I think, in terms of the new items in the budget, the English learners, classroom teachers, 5 full-time equivalent, and the special education, 5 full-time equivalent teachers. I believe both of those, or at least one of those, is a result of our gap analysis that was led by Ms. Keisha Red-Hannons and the collaborative effort between a number of people in the district. And I just appreciate the attachment of dollars to what was identified as clear needs for our district. This budget doesn't allow us to fully hire in the direction that we fully hire who we need to, but we are moving in the direction. So I do appreciate that this budget reflects the work. And I do hope that that committee and our board continues to update the gap analysis and to eliminate the gap altogether, and that we can present to the state as well as the alders and others the progress we're making and how much more needs to be done. Thank you.
Dr. Yarborough. Mayor Elicker?
Thank you. I too am supportive of this budget and appreciate Dr. Tracy and Ms. Hannon's work on the budget. I did want to point out that, I think this, and we've had this conversation at previous board meetings, but this dynamic of us versus them on the city Board of Ed side is not very productive, especially after a year where I proposed in my budget an $8 million increase and the Board of Alders supported that increase fully. And we all can recognize that there's more work we have to do, but instead of pointing at each other, it's, I think, much more productive to point at the state, like many of us have done, to advocate for more resources towards our city. The other thing I would add is that these employees, because of a technical legal reason, are on the city side, but they are fully doing work on the New Haven Public School side. So this is not the Board of Education paying the city for employees to do work on the city side. It is the Board of Education having employees doing work on the Board of Education side that are, because of the legal requirements, happen to be in name on the city side. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Elicker. Dr. Joyner?
I'd just like to make a brief comment in support of this whole notion that we're all one system. In most cases, the creator designed the body to work in harmony. The heart works with the lungs, and the circulatory system provides oxygen and blood and what have you. And we ought to look at our community as a community where we're all engaged in trying to create the best conditions for the development of children and families. And unless somebody's cheating or rigging the game, every penny we spend on the development of our city helps everybody. So I too wish we would stop creating, I guess, arguments that make it look as if you got a group of people over here competing with a group of people over here when we're all in the same boat and trying to get to the same destination. New Haven has been good and far better than the rest of the country if you watch the news. And we need to continue to get better and recognize that in order to be a whole village, we have to be a whole village. And recognize that, you can't target a city that has an inadequate revenue stream when we live in the wealthiest state in the country. And the real issue is not only does our state not fund education, but the federal government doesn't, and it has never done that. And as long as we fight among ourselves, then we're going to continue to have problems. The other thing is that despite our inadequacies, this still is a great place for kids to learn. And I'll talk a little bit more about that when I do my teaching and learning report. But let's stop these arguments and let's try to work some of these things out away from meetings when we really don't have time to go into deep detail, and try to get some of these understandings before we show up for the amount of time that we have to discuss some of these issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Joyner. Thank you, Dr. Joyner. Dr. Benitez?
I just want to thank everyone for raising their concerns. I think that the staff and the team at the finance department has done a really good job in helping us understand what takes place with our budgets. And I do want to say to Ms. Hannans that she's truly appreciated for doing that, making things clearer for us. And I'm urging everybody that we all rally together to ask the state to really fund what they, in a very good way, approve as a law, to have fair funding, but to actually fund that fair funding so that cities like ours that provide a good place for children of all different walks of life. I mean, I cannot think of any other place I would have raised my children and that I want my grandchildren to grow up, because of the diversity and the incredible opportunities to learn and to become human that we have in New Haven. So, but I think we really truly have to pressure the state to fund the Fair Funding Act as a team, as both, all of us in New Haven. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Benitez. Mr. Golton, and then Dr. Tracy.
Thank you, Madam President. I am truly sorry that some people have taken my comments and didn't understand them. My comments, nowhere in my comments was to say us versus them. First of all, they were mostly questions, but the comments were us versus them. I served on the Board of Alders. I know how difficult it is for them to make decisions funding the entire city budget, including the Board of Education, but the police and fire and all those other departments. So I understand that they have to make decisions based on both what they have and what the needs are and what the taxpayers want to see. I understand that. But I'm not on the Board of Alders now. I'm on the Board of Education. And my role is to advocate for the Board of Education and for the needs of our students and our staff. So I can't accept, I'm going to vote for it because I really don't have a choice, but I can't accept a budget that our staff says needs $207 million just to keep the lights on. It only receives $203 million. I can't accept that. So I'm going to continue to advocate for what this Board of Education needs. And maybe if I'm at the state government or back on the Board of Alders or I'm on the police commission, I'll be advocating for something else. But on this board, this is what I'm advocating for. I'm not confused about my role on this board. I know what I have to do. I know what I have to do both morally and statutorily for our students and our staff and our families. So if folks want to take my comments as a war of them versus us, go right ahead and do it. But at the end of the day, I don't lose sleep by advocating for what my staff says, and that's that we should have $207 million. And that's just to keep the lights on. That's not for anything extra. We still pay our paraprofessionals way less than a living wage. Way less than a living wage. And we have argued about whether we can afford to give them 25 cents an hour raises. 25 cents. So yes, I'm going to continue to argue for this Board of Education. And if folks somewhere else want to see that as a us versus them fight, then they could go ahead and do it. Because I know what my role is on this board. I understand what my role is, and I'm not confused by what my role is on this board. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Golson. Dr. Tracy?
So I will say my statement, which is, I consider my premise. The cliff is coming. And I let that settle for them. The cliff is coming. We're talking about the funding cliff is coming. I want to thank our mayor for pushing to get that $8 million, which has never happened, which has never happened in New Haven. So he did a good job in accentuating that in his budget. And I want to thank the Board of Alders for supporting and voting for it, so we can have that amount of funds. I also want to say that Ms. Hannans, Ms. Christine Bourne, who is on this call right now, on this video right now, Juanita Madzik, Miss Ann Casey, Keisha Hannans, myself, Michelle Bonanno, and all those of us who huddle to really make sure that we're looking at every area where we can squeeze some dollars from. And mark you, when we're squeezing these dollars, it's impacting other programs. But we were able to squeeze a lot into trying to mitigate or bring to a close last year's budget, and also projecting forward 2023, 2024 budget and trying to find ways to mitigate. At some point when these grants are gone, we don't have anything else to look forward to. So it's going to be a challenge for New Haven Public Schools, as I said in my report. But nevertheless, Mr. Wilcox has always been there, asking questions, pushing back on them. Thank you, Matt. Always. And Dr. Yarborough asks all these questions and pushing back for us to think about what it is we're proposing, what it is we're putting down. And we use all those information to go back to the drawing board and figure out what we're doing. So it takes time. You should see us at central office sometimes, meeting my office. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? And I honestly don't believe we need to be in that place. I honestly don't believe it should be such a hard thing to get resources to support our students, but we struggle a lot in trying to figure out how we're going to close this, how we're going to do this, how we're going to project forward, what the system is going to look like in the future. So to the point where some people think that this is time for me to quit. I'm honestly saying that some people around the table thought this is just too much. It's an agonizing time for us to find when poor Christine is trying, okay, a couple thousand just came in. Let's see if we can put it here, patch this hole up here. It's not a nice situation. We need to be in a better position where we have the amount of funds we need to run the public school. These are our children, and they deserve every penny or even more of that. So with that said, I want to thank the board members for saying they're agreeing to the budget, and we voted already, correct?
No, not yet, Dr. Tracy.
Not yet, but I hope that you will vote to pass this budget. July 1st is coming. Bills need to be paid. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tracy. Mr. Wilcox?
Just very quickly on the good news front, one thing that hasn't been mentioned yet tonight is that there is some additional state monies that are most likely coming to the district. It's not reflected in this because it's not, they don't know the exact format and what categories and what the rules are going to be. So but there are some additional funds that are going to be coming in because of the state's budget, and a lot of people in this room, on this call, and in the district and in districts all around the state fought for that. I know, the unions, Leslie Blateau, Ms. Blateau and Ms. Williams were part of this, the Recovery for All group, organizing labor unions and folks around the state. So I think if I remember the numbers from the school finance group, is almost $2 million extra coming to New Haven schools next year, looks like, and I think 6 million in the next year. So there is, when we do work and fight for those things, not just talk about it or argue it, but we work for it and work together, we are seeing some things. So I'm hoping to follow up on Dr. Benitez's point that we can find more ways to continue to do that at the state and the federal level. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilcox. Okay, seeing no further discussion, we'll vote on the adjusted budget. Mr. Wilcox,
Yes.
Dr. Yarborough,
Yes.
Yes.
Dr. Joyner,
Yes.
Dr. Benitez,
Yes.
Mr. Cruz Bustamante, Mayor Elicker,
Yes.
and I am a yes as well. So that item passes. We'll move on to the students report.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here on this Monday. Thank you to the board. I don't know, for me, every day feel like a Friday, so that's why I said thank you. I know it's a Monday though. Just some quick updates. I'll be taking a leave of absence starting July 10th till mid-August. I'm doing a program at Yale University. I've been in communication with John Carlos. Again, congratulations on his victory. Regarding onboarding and getting adjusted to this board, I have a lot of confidence in his skills and his intellect. He is an amazing student. I see him around across, and he's been deeply involved with the advocacy that we've been doing for the past 2 years. And as you may have seen in the news, on the New Haven Independent, we announced our Hope and Victory directives, which to some is controversial, but is representative of the needs and wants of the New Haven Public School students. Among those demands are directives to address student power institutions, subpar facilities, et cetera, things I brought up before. The more exact language behind these proposals will come up in the next 2 meetings once John Carlos is onboarded, because he's also been involved with that work. But within these directives include student committees, the creation of student committees that have real decisive power in creating school policy, deciding where school funds go and how curriculum is structured, as well as adding accountability measures to address school facilities. And I do take into account y'all's comments, and I know Dr. Joyner is a big fan of personal responsibility. I think there are a few issues with that doctrine, but I do understand that. And with the creation of these student committees, this allows for students to take accountability for their own schools as well, in a way that actually has merit and decisive power. This list of directives also includes and asks to boost the amount of funding for the creation of a universal district-wide system of restorative and transformative justice, instead of having separate projects ongoing at different schools, to eventually replace the traditional disciplinary system that we have now, which, to be frank, is ineffective. This will all be done in conjugation with these new robust student committees who will be in communication with mass youth movements, labor unions, and community service providers. Like I said, the full plan will be presented within the next 2 meetings. I'll be bringing it forward to the new superintendent, looking forward to y'all's help. And I think it's a no-brainer, honestly. It isn't asking for much. It's just asking for accountability. And another thing, I mean, sitting here, I biked almost 40 minutes and got lost to come here. And it hasn't been the funnest time till now, as you may see by my despondent face. But I do want to thank all of y'all, your advocacy, Mr. Goldson, your patience, and everything that you do, Mayor Elicker, and also your attention to detail, and to all of y'all and to your patience in the audience. Now, keeping that in mind, I also ask that we take accountability for ourselves, because a lot of students and teachers come up to me and ask how I deal with it, right? Like the dysfunction that's the board. And honestly, that's very upsetting and very sad, because the Board of Education is a pretty irrelevant, not irrelevant, but small department in the bigger system that is the city. And it really saddens me coming here today to see arguments upon arguments upon arguments on, I can't even recall what. And so I ask that we take more accountability and, like Mr. Wilcox said, work together cooperatively to build a better system for our children and our youth, and to point our attention in our fights where it's really needed, which is the state of Connecticut, which has so long denied the funding that's needed for the continued survival of our young people. That is all for my report. Unfortunately, I do have to go. I'm very sorry, but again, I will be back in mid-August. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mr. Cruz Bustamante, and good luck with your Yale work. Teaching and learning, Dr. Joyner? Actually, and hold on 1 second, Dr. Joyner. Any questions or comments for Mr. Cruz Bustamante? Okay, seeing none. Dr. Joyner, teaching and learning?
First of all, let me take this time to thank Ms. Keisha Red-Hannons and Dr. Tracy for the work that they have been able to do to try to keep things afloat. During COVID, people forgot about COVID. It was a big deal. And the way in which they were able to advance the math and literacy initiatives against a lot of difficulty. And for Dr. Benitez. Dr. Benitez has been a great, great addition to this board because of her lived experience and her great knowledge of education and how children and how groups of children learn, because you don't teach a child in a classroom, you teach a child within the context of a group of other children, and you teach the whole group. I'd like to start out by saying that I have a meeting with Dr. Negron on the 6th, and I want to compliment her and Dr. Tracy for working very closely together over the last several months, because this is the first time since I've been on the board that there has been a good handoff between the superintendent that's leaving and the superintendent that's coming in. It's also the first time since I've been on the board where the board actually acted in a way consistent with high standards of boardmanship when it came to with the exception of maybe one particular incident, when it came to selecting a superintendent. And I think the best example of that are tonight's appointments. We just had a recent NBA draft. And when I look at some of the people that we hired tonight, it's almost like we got #1 draft choices. And one of the persons worked at Betances Elementary School in Hartford. That was one of our best schools when I was with the Coma model at Yale. And Edna Negron was the principal. And it was a nationally acclaimed school. So we got her, and clearly she has a lived experience that's also helpful. Jonathan Behrman is one of the best kept secrets anywhere. He's brilliant. He has high energy, and he is very persistent in insisting that all children live up to their potential. And he's also the son of 2 parents who attended a school in Farmville, Virginia that was shut down so that the law and order people in that community didn't have to integrate their schools. And so he lived through that, and he understands that. So Dr. Tracy, you and Dr. Negron deserve credit, because I know you guys work together to give us these appointments. They are first-round draft choices. And it's our job as a board to make sure we give them the support they need in order to improve teaching and learning. One of the things that Bill BOE said at Hill House High School, that teaching is what teachers and administrators do, and learning is what students do and what parents support their students to do. And I think almost every board member would agree with me that our students can respond better. They can have more respect for the environment. They can have more respect for the equipment and for each other and their teachers, and recognize that despite what we don't have, what we do have is something that their ancestors could never dream of. And I think that if principals are going to lead their buildings, they're going to have to address all those issues, because it is the person that's in charge of that building that has the greatest opportunity to create within students and staff the idea that we are one unified community and that we're in this together. I think that in terms of the instructional priorities, I'm going to talk to Dr. Negron about critical thinking and all the content areas. If we look at some of the decisions that adults are making in our culture and some of the things that they're unwilling to analyze, critical thinking is a serious issue in American society. If you don't believe me, when this meeting is over, watch any of the cable news networks and look at what people are saying about stuff. It's a complete disrespect for evidence. And look at what's going on in the world. So I hope that we can develop a systemic approach to teaching critical thinking in all the content areas. And I'm going to ask the board to please join with me in trying to make sure that in every single classroom, every child understands the steps involved in forming judgments and the role of evidence and the ethics that go along with that as well. Systematic word study. Every school district that has had high levels of literacy achievement has had systematic word study across all grade levels. And they test it, and we're gonna have to do that. And then of course, independent reading based on student interest. Volume is a critical attribute of a person who is learned. It's the same thing with exercise. That if you want to get stronger, you have to work out. And you have to do it routinely. If you want to get more intelligent, you have to work out. And our schools should be busy places where students are attentive to what is being taught and responsible for themselves and others. And when you talk about vandalism in the bathroom, that's not happening because teachers are going in there vandalizing the bathrooms. It's not happening because custodians are doing it. And so we have to hold each other accountable. And yes, personal responsibility is important. It is one of the most important human qualities. It is self-evident. If you don't believe it's self-evident, ask yourself what it means to be personally irresponsible. And of course, group responsibility is important. But group responsibility is only as good as the individual units in that group and how responsible they are. So we're going to have to focus on these things, hopefully get a board plan and a district plan so that we can be on the same page in terms of what our priorities are and how we're spending our money. And last but not least, all these things that people are asking us to do have a price tag. We're the only ones that can decide how we're organized, what positions we have. And we're not the only ones responsible for some of these big problems that are brought to our doorstep. We have a limited budget. Our job is to educate children. And the core of what we do has to be that. And the core money that we spend has to be placed on that. People have to understand that. You have to understand that we're embedded in a larger system. And there are some other places that you might need to go to deal with some of these other issues that you're bringing to us. Now, I probably don't know too much because I've only lived 76 years and I only have about 4 degrees and worked in a whole bunch of educational settings. But we're going to have to do that if we're going to really change the system. And we're going to have to let the professionals do their jobs and trust that they can do that. And when they don't do it, we hold them accountable. But we're part-time policymakers. They're full-time professionals. And I have a chance to say this again to Dr. Tracy. I thought you did a great job considering that you had inherited a broken system, a fragmented system, a system that was cannibalizing itself. And you brought a level of stability to this system. And I believe with all my heart and soul that Dr. Negron is going to take that baton that you passed to her and run with it. And this board, we're going to have to support her, and we're going to have to try to work out a lot of our issues in a more productive environment so that when we do come before the public, we will have done all of the background that we need to do in order to make good decisions. So that's my teaching and learning report. Teaching and learning is a product of everything we do. And again, we have to plan it. We have to work with the superintendent to do it. We also have to consider certain fiscal realities. Madam Chair, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Dr. Joyner. Questions or comments for Dr. Joyner? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to Facilities Naming Committee report. Dr. Joyner.
Real quick, the people who want Dr. Garris to be memorialized, well, we don't memorialize because he's alive and well, honored. The people who want Dr. Tracy to be honored and the people who want Ms. Hazel Pappas to be memorialized have to get in touch with Tiffany Jackson and me so that we can help get the ball rolling. It's not our job to do that. It is the people that are bringing these names forward's jobs to do that. And please, I think my cell number is in the on the board. Call me or whatever so that we can get things going.
Thank you, Dr. Joyner. Superintendent's report, Dr. Tracy.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you, board. So I have sent about 29 slides to you via email that laid out end of year update report. Following the strategic plan priority areas of academic learning, youth and family engagement, operational efficiencies, culture and climate, and talented educators. I'm not going to use this time to go through all of these. I had sent it to you, but just so you know that I'll be also sharing these with Dr. Negron. She'll be coming in tomorrow to show what we have accomplished so far and some of the work or challenges that still need to be mitigated as we move forward. So we are proud of the fact in academic learning that we have put in a lot of time in professional development for this new reading program. Even this week, we had more than 100 teachers signed up and were there for the letters training for the early literacy program. We have also done a lot of pilots with math and science for 6th through 8th grade, and we have purchased materials. So that's the key. We've invested our funds in a proper way. We have not wasted. We have used the funds that were given to us to accelerate learning, to get materials for our students. We have also, we can boast about 149 students achieving the seal of biliteracy, thanks to Ms. Jessica Haxey for making sure that happened. And we've seen this increase this year. She said it's the second highest in New Haven's history, and that's something to be applauded. We have our career pathways, 300 dual enrollment course completions, 100 more than what we did last year. So because we have someone focusing on that now through Ms. Dina Natalino, we see the work moving forward. We have our health, manufacturing, and education pathways that have been launched, and working with the city of New Haven through the mayor's office to see what comes out of the biotech building that they're putting up. I think it's almost finished, and we'll have a part in that. We have updated quality teaching and learning materials, the indicators. All departments have their plans. We have trifold document that was created for grades kindergarten through grade 6 that will show parents what students should know and be able to do in their grade levels in all content areas. We're proud of those accomplishments. At least we have the foundation laid. We have other things that have happened, which will continue next year, hopefully, school quality reviews conducted by principal supervisors, where they go into schools with other principals from across the district in their network and examine teaching and learning and give those feedback to the principals, who then give feedback to their teachers. So that feedback loop is important. We're seeing signs of growth, although it does not spell out right now, right yet. We're still cooking. We're still baking the bread, right? So I would say the ingredients are in, and hopefully we'll see a well-baked bread at the end of all this. And this bread does take time because we're dealing with human beings, right? Excuse my analogies about bread and cooking, but it does take time. The right ingredients are there, and I'm sure that at some point we'll see the payoff. We have ESOL pilot programs that have gone on. We have expanded work-based learning, access to early college, Saturday Academy for supports. We have a lot of things. You can read them for yourself. Partnerships with the Eli Whitney Museum and other places. We can say that 18 of our schools, the 18 schools that needed NIC accreditation have been accredited. So that's a plus. And from Ms. Pamela Agustin Jefferson and her team to do that. That whole department was decimated. Now, thank God, we've received a new leader to make sure that things are not falling out of place, but that work will continue. Still more hires to happen in that department to replace those who have retired recently. We're also proud to say we have launched our Twilight Schools for those students who are struggling with the regular high school setting. And that's being led by Miss Anne Brilliant from Cross, one of our assistant principals, and that is going well. Our climate and culture, it still continue to be work in progress, but we're glad to say that we have reduced chronic absenteeism down to 37 from 58.2%. And we're hoping to see, even when the final data comes out, to see even less, more decrease in that. We have expanded our mentoring programs. We have spent funds on care coordinators and outreach workers. We have monthly family events. A lot of things this department has spent working on to make sure that the needs of our families have been serviced. Before and after school programs were expanded, with over 4,500 students participating in summer school, after school, spring vacation break, Saturday Academy, and with over 23 community partners providing after school services. So that's where we put our monies, in our students, And I want to say, this ESSER grant was not used to push into human capital. We do a lot in providing services for our students. Restorative practices is being strengthened. We have over 227 restorative circles that have taken place. We've lost Cameo, and we're looking at replacing her with someone who was shadowing her all this time, and that will come shortly. So a lot of work, professional development across the different areas, the different departments have happened. And we believe that investing in professional development will be very helpful in moving the needle forward. In terms of talent management, a lot of collaborative work. The one that I'm most proud of is the one with Southern Connecticut University in the state of Connecticut. They have never, ever given DSAP license to elementary teachers, but with this special program, we had about 42 paraeducators who went through and have gotten their degrees in teacher education, and we're placing a lot of them now in our vacancies that we have. So it's like growing your own. We also have staff paraeducators in the relay program, about 10 of them. So we have the residency program. So we're looking at all these different strands in which we can encourage our own to get into the field of education. Alternative road to certification, we have the ARCTEL program through ACES. There's so many things going on in this district that would make your head spin, actually, if we were to spend time going through all of this. We're a huge system and multifaceted. There's so many moving parts that a superintendent has to attend to. And that's why it is important to have capable individuals working with you who you can delegate and be sure that they're going to carry out the vision and mission of the district. HR has developed a guidebook so that administrators don't keep calling, what should we do, what should we do? So that they'll have a handbook that they can handle. They're better staffed. They have 11 workers now. We lost 2 recently, and they're replacing as quickly as we've lost them. They're moving on to places that pay them higher salaries. And everything is higher salaries. I'm also proud that we're able to hire a director of transportation, that a director of food service. All of these are hard things, hard areas to find people to fulfill. As I look across and the frontline system for various schools, these are positions that they have going that they're needing people for. So we went ahead of the game and get our people in and try to get them in on time. Security round 6 application completed, balanced budget 3 consecutive years, all administrative hires completed in a timely manner, and those contracts that we have negotiated. So, and you'll see some facilities accomplishments in there. You'll see some things from the business department, and then you'll see at the end my reflection. And I want to say that we still have challenges, a lot of challenges. You never have a big system like ours that's going to be perfect and there's no challenge. There will be challenges. But I just want to say to us, although there'll be challenges, and I'm proud to have worked here for 39 years of my young life. I said my young life that I've given to New Haven Public School. And I'm joining Dr. Benitez in relaxing, right, Doc? So I want to say that it is very important. It is critical that we give 100% support to the new superintendent. If we do not do that, you're going to have an issue with morale. And you can't just listen to everything that comes to you. There's always another side to the story that you're hearing. So I would ask that we ask a lot of questions and get all the necessary information before decisions are made. We have to make sure that, as Dr. Jordan said, if there are things that we disagree with, that we deal with them behind closed doors. I'll go back to the era of the DeStefano and Mayor. You never see them out publicly going after each other or doing any form of criticism, because whatever they had to criticize, they do it behind closed doors, and then they come out as a united front. Our community needs to see a united front. It does not add anything to us in terms of popularity or anything for us to always be arguing about things on the Board of Education. I'm dropping my mic in a little while so I can say that now loud and clear. It doesn't do us any good to have public fighting, public confrontation, and the superintendent many times is in the midst of that. Even if we don't like what is going on, address it behind closed door. That's why we have a president of the board whom information is given to, who then addresses these situations if you're not going to be able to do that independently. So I'm asking you, please, in this transition, for the sake of New Haven Public Schools and our great system, that we ensure that the morale remains or go up higher if it can, and that there's a smooth transition in this time of change. Thank you so much for working with me and for those who supported me throughout this process. I really appreciate what you have done. Thank you.
Questions or comments for Dr. Tracy? Mr. Wilcox.
Yes, I just want to say thank you, Dr. Tracy, for this end of year report and end of career report, I guess, as well. I just want to say it's been a pleasure working with you as a board member. It's a pleasure arguing with you sometimes, working with you most of the time. It's been great. I hope that you get some well-needed rest. And I do appreciate the work that you've done on behalf of New Haven Public Schools, not just as our superintendent, our interim superintendent, our assistant superintendent, et cetera, all the way back to teacher, et cetera. So thank you very much for that and for this opportunity to have worked with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Mr. Wilcox. Dr. Benitez?
Just wanted to say thank you to Dr. Tracy and just, I have to say, you said you were not gonna tell us the whole report, but you did, and I'm glad you did because we really enjoy hearing all that happens in this district and how we continue to support many programs that have been offered to students for many decades. So I thank you for your report. I thank you for your service. And I will tell you this, you will not be relaxed in retirement. Retirement will find its way to make you do a lot of reading, a lot of writing, a lot of thinking, and I'm sure you're not going to stay home. So I wish you good times to have your tea or your nice cold drink in the morning without a rush. But after 10 o'clock, I'm sure you're going to be plenty busy. The good thing is I don't do anything before 10 a.m. other than take care of me. So
Thank you for that.
I hope that you enjoy your retirement, Dr. Tracy. You deserve that time.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Scarborough, and then Dr. Joyner?
Thank you. Dr. Tracy, I have learned a lot working with you, and I appreciate your willingness to teach and to share what you know, what you have experienced. I thank you for being willing to onboard me and help me to join this board and join in the labor and the work. I also thank you for your end of year, end of career report. One, because I love data and you provide lots of it, and it gives me something to reflect upon and just to understand where we are, how far we've come, and where we can go. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for showing up each day. There are even times where you were sick, but still sending emails, on calls, being in meetings, and taking your roles and responsibilities seriously. So thank you very much just for modeling that for me and for others. And I appreciate you. Health and strength to you and your family as you retire. And yeah, I continue to look forward to learning from you.
Okay.
So thank you for showing the way.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Yarborough. Dr. Joyner?
Dr. Tracy, I think I've known you for almost the entire time you've been in education. And you are a living example of the answer to the question, how we got over. And how we got over was because of people of high character who were willing to make sacrifices. In some case, under the penalty of death, and I'm glad you didn't have to make that sacrifice, to try to help people, particularly the least among us. Character amplifies leadership. There's no doubt about it. You give a person of good character leadership and great things will happen. And conversely, bad character diminishes leadership. We can see that happening all over the world and all over our community. When I think about your origin in a colonized society where people of color and women especially were thought to be less than and thought to be consigned to subordinate status. And with all the dignity and grace that any human being can muster, you quietly said no. And you started climbing. And those of you who know her know that she can climb mountains literally and figuratively. I don't know if any of us can keep up with Dr. Tracy when she's going up West Rock or East Rock or any rock. And you managed to do that while at the same time being a great wife, a great mother, a great grandmother, and a great friend. I think the other thing that you did that encouraged me so much is that you always tried to find the very best people and put them in the best positions so that they could help the cause. And you stood tall if somebody tried to get you to do otherwise. So I never met Mary McLeod Bethune. I never met any of these great people, Jaime Escalante, but I do know that you're in that pantheon of educators who have made a significant difference. And unfortunately, sometimes people won't realize that until you're no longer around to hear it. But the children that you have taught, that you have touched, are living memorials to the work that you've done. So I'm happy that you and your husband will have some time to yourselves because life is short. And you can enjoy the fruits of your labor, but I'm very sad that you're leaving. But in private conversation, I know how much respect you have for Dr. Negron. And I know how much you have done to try to pave the way for her. And it's that relay race. And in education, it's largely been run by women, where you pass the torch to someone that can continue the race and we can get more kids educated. So I thank you from the bottom of my heart. If I were a rich man, I would give you a big bonus. Build you and your husband a big house and do all those other kind of things, but I'm not rich. I'm comfortable. But if you and your husband Donovan ever want to go out for dinner or go hang out, let my wife and I know, and your uncle and aunt will always be there for you. Love you dearly. Yeah. And you've come a long ways. And I was gonna sing Jamaica Farewell, but I didn't have my band ready tonight. That's one of my favorite songs. I started singing when I was about 7th grade. Harry Belafonte. I know you know the song.
Yep.
And I thought about you when I was listening to it. And I had a little tear, but it was a happy one. So God bless you. And this won't be the last time you see me. It won't be the last time I see you.
That's right.
And thank you, board, for unanimously making Eileen Tracy our superintendent so that we can lead our way out of the darkness into the light. And Dr. Negron will lead us further. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Joyner. Mayor Elicker?
I was going to wait until after the food service task group report, because we have this big crescendo here, and then we're going to hear from the citywide school building committee report and such. But just Dr. Tracy, I said a lot of nice things about you already. I think at your goodbye dinner, it was very touching to hear so many wonderful comments about you. I admire your strength. You have incredible strength that we have leaned on throughout this very, very difficult time. I can't remember, you have you have a lot of children, right? 10? How many children do you have?
7 children, 9 grandchildren, and a great
Yeah,
grand.
I've seen my wife have 2 children, and hats off to you. That is amazing. That shows your toughness. But in reality, you have 19,000 children.
Yeah.
And when you look back on your career here, you should be proud of what you've been able to accomplish. And just how many young people who have become adults have benefited from your leadership, your wisdom, and your strength. You'll never know the impact the full impact that you have had, but you can rest assured that you should be proud of everything that you've accomplished. And we're grateful for your contribution to our city.
Mhm. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Elicker. Else? Okay. I do not have a president's report, but I do want to take a few seconds to also thank you, Dr. Tracy, for your hard work. I said most of what I wanted to say at your retirement dinner.
Yes, you did.
But 2020, what a year. I became president that year. You became superintendent. And boy, did we have our work cut out for us. I thank you for all of your hard work, also all of your support. There were many, many, many phone conversations at all hours of the day, emails, text messages. And I'm just grateful to have been able to work with you during this time. I wish you a very happy retirement. I wish you lots of health, relaxation, and I wish that you, instead of digging your heels now at a board meeting, that you now dig your heels, hopefully in a nice sandy beach somewhere.
Right.
Thank you, Dr. Tracy.
Sounds good. Thank you. Thank you. And I want to thank all those of you who have shown up to my reception. My family was very appreciative of that, and it was a great occasion. I introduced them all to vegan stuff, all vegan. It was all good, but thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Dr. Tracy. All right, Head Start report, Mr. Wilcox.
All right, thank you. I'll try to make it a crescendo as with these reports, but I'll be very brief with them. I can just handle all three at once here. Head Start report, we did meet, the information's posted, the numbers are still pretty good. Staff right now are working on making sure we have enough students to fill the classes coming up in the fall. And they're going to be, you'll see them at a variety of city functions, putting up the tent, signing up folks for Head Start. The Citywide School Building Committee, we have not met since our last meeting. Our next meeting is on July 13th. And then finally, we already talked about the items, the discussion like the MOU, et cetera, for the Finance and Operations Committee. So if I am happy to answer any questions about any of those.
Questions or comments for Mr. Wilcox on any of those? We'll move on to the governance report. Dr. Benitez.
Good evening, everyone. We had our meeting today, earlier today, and as you know, we continue to have two very committed persons, both Ms. Jasmine Ong and Mr. Eric Scholz, who are working on making our policies available to the public. Both of them have worked on individualizing the PDF for Series 3000 at this point, which has been completed. Those that have been completed are now on the website and can be seen individually. They are trying to continue to do that as we continue to give them updated policies. Today at the meeting, we discussed how we should be marking the updated policies so that people don't have to actually go in to find a date, but that we will bold those that are already updated. We also continue to work with our great Finance and Operations Committee, who has a really big task on updating Series 3000. The next board meeting on July 10th, we will be sending some policies that have been completed by their committee for your first reading. And we also continue to work on Series 5000 ourselves, the governance committee. We will have a special meeting on July 10th, earlier that day, to work on updating some of the Series 5000. And we want you to all know that we continue to collaborate with the nursing department in making sure that we review policies that are related to administering medication, and also we're making sure that we're addressing any comments that the department has given to us so that policies address the needs of our students in the buildings. I also want to thank everybody who's trying to work on their series that have been assigned. We're encouraging that if you can send 1 or 2 items at a time, we will appreciate that. That way we can continue to look at other policies that need to be updated. Again, thank you. And I want to thank Ms. Tiffany Jackson and Ms. Jasmine Ong for their very supportive work and very focused work during this school year. Thank you and have a good evening.
Thank you, Dr. Benitez. Questions or comments for Dr. Benitez? Okay, we'll move on to the Food Service Task Group report. Dr. Yarborough?
Thank you. The Food Service Task Group met, and I was grateful to learn and to hear that Ms. Gail Shari, our outgoing and retiring Food Service Director, is working to onboard our new Food Service Director. And Mr. Lamb is also helping that process. The Food Service Director will also kind of be brought up to speed on where the district is and what we are hoping, particularly as it relates to our sustainability efforts and the collaborations we have already begun to form and want to continue to nurture and grow. As well, I'm also thankful for Ms. Susan Harris and the Food Gap subgroup as they prepare for the summer gap time and preparing and providing food for students. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Dr. Yarborough. Questions or comments for Dr. Yarborough? Okay, seeing none, that was our last item on the agenda. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move.
Second.
Thank you. Mr. Goldson?
Yes.
Dr. Benitez?
Yes.
Mr. Wilcox?
Yes.
Dr. Joyner?
Yes.
Dr. Yarborough?
Yes.
Mayor Elicker?
Yes.
And I am a yes as well. Good night, everyone, and